Jason Connerly has a request for a song. Therefore, we indulge him.
This song was the ETU fight song performed at ChupacabraCon by Deathclock.
Fight, Ravens, fight. Put on the black and white. Fight, Ravens, fight. We'll win that game tonight. Deathclock.
Hey, Carl, thank you for the detailed answer on the Raiders game. I appreciate that. I can see why you would like that. Yeah, it doesn't appeal to me. I would stick with Call of Cthulhu or go to Savage Worlds. I don't see a need for something in the middle. But I'm more and more not liking having 25 different game systems I'm running in because it's a pain in the ass. But I do appreciate your review of it. I think the detail you gave definitely answered my question. And no doubt you're going to force me into playing it at some point. So I will probably have a better idea after I play it against my will. So thank you, and I'm going to listen to the rest of your podcast now.
Wow, Jason, that was a fast response to the call, so I am giving you a fast response to your fast response. So what was kind of cool is I was looking at reviews for Raiders of Ryla, actually after I put down my answer, and it says it actually runs more akin to Mithras, so it really is kind of leans heavily on sort of the Mithras engine, and it tries to adapt it, or it adapts it to this time period, a more modern time period. Most of the Mithras stuff is fantasy or set in a mythical, real-world place. So I don't remember seeing a lot of that kind of detail in the Mithras stuff, but maybe the combat or the skills kind of align with what Mithras is like, as opposed to Call of Cthulhu. I always pick and choose and pluck things from one system or another, especially in a percentile game. One can do that. So maybe it might be easier to say, okay, well, to remember to add or subtract bonuses from skills depending on the situation, depending on how you guys kind of role play into it or detail. Like, say you go into a room and you detail how you're casing the room, how you're turning it over or whatever, then I give you a bonus, like a plus 20, making it easier for you. Or if you take your time, then you should get a bonus. So kind of incorporate some of these little details and suggestions from the book into our ongoing games instead of revamping every single game, which is clearly not ideal. But it does seem pretty neat, and I've always preferred, and I've run Call of Cthulhu, in my opinion, more Howardian as opposed to Lovecraftian. So more action adventure, give the characters a chance. They can defeat the creature, the elder, whatever, instead of running away and passing out and then waking up days later trying to remember what happened.
Hey, Carl, Jason the Rat Pack here. Great episode. Really enjoyed your session recaps. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you say you can lose at RPGs. The point is to have fun. And if you can't enjoy your characters getting killed, then I don't know what to tell you. People die all the time. Characters die all the time. You can't want verisimilitude and grittiness and granularity without breaking a couple characters' heads. What can I say? And especially when you talk about a game like Warhammer Fantasy, it's supposed to be a gritty, deadly world, right? I think the characters belong to the game, not to the players. So if a player doesn't show up to a game, then that character is, definitely open to be used as an NPC. But to be fair, it sounds like Kevin's policies aren't new, so everybody kind of knew what the deal was.
Actually, I should have been more clear. I didn't mind the character death. My character was dying anyway. I mean, unless you use GM Fiat and fate points, there's no way mathematically it seemed he could survive, the green pox, right? So he was going to die, or at least, if you're a player with a terminal disease, or you're a character with a terminal disease in a game, I mean, he's a dwarf, his mentality, I'm going to go down fighting. So I guess what I was disappointed with was that we lost in that we didn't defeat this guy even after I died. If my death had helped with that and I had died, that would have been glorious. That's fine. But I guess I was upset that we didn't succeed in the task, which was taking out this guy and preventing the perversion of the Grail Chapel and his ascendance to a warrior of chaos. That's why I was upset. But there was really nothing I could do about it because my character made the decision to charge this guy and try to fight and act as a holding while the other characters hopefully succeeded in the task, but they did not either. So that's what happened. And I think, shoot, I feel like the Ash Valeria is aberrant. Usually I play my characters, especially if they're upfront beat 'em ups, they charge into things. If they're ranged types like rangers or scouts, then they, support, fight, take action. I guess that's what it is. I want to, as a player, I want to take action. But, you can only decide what you can do for yourself, right? So, and you hope that other players get that and press. But people play their characters differently. Sometimes they're more cautious, and they want to survive instead of succeed. I guess that's the best way to put it. And I mean, no fault on Kevin. We roll on the table. He rolled on the table. The dice just weren't with Goril in that case. But I knew it. I knew that going in, there was a high chance that I would die, a slim chance of survival. But he was a dead man walking anyway, in my opinion. And that was cool. That was the cool part. I guess it's just maybe it's better if we talk about this privately, Jason. But there are other reasons. And I'm still debating whether I want to continue. But Kevin has communicated with us his plan. Of course, we're going to take some time off. I think they're going to jump into playing Death Watch, which I will, step out and let someone else join and experience Kevin Madison's fantastic GM-ship. And then I don't know when we're getting back to Warhammer Fantasy, but we'll see. It'll be some time. I mean, I get to play Warhammer Fantasy every other week, and we're doing 4th edition. And again, 4th edition can be just as deadly downward spiral. We experienced that in the Talabheim adventure, where once you get injured, it's the suck. You get overwhelmed very rapidly and can definitely die. And we had one permadeath in that game where the character decided not to use fate points. And I guess maybe because they were like dwarves and elves don't start off with as many fate points. I think if he had spent a fate point, he would have like none for rerolls, right? So I guess maybe he decided what was the point. And then the other player was a human who had multiple, like maybe 3 or 4 fate points. So he spent one to survive, even though he rolls as written fell to his death. But rules as written also say you can permanently spend a fate point to miraculously survive. So he was jacked up, sure. He lost some permanent ability score somewhere, somehow, but survived. So, and surprisingly, I am shocked that none of the other characters died during the campaign. They all got pretty close. And even in this last game, we've had, in the last fight, we've had unconsciousness, or players get knocked to unconsciousness and have to spend points to make sure they don't die. Right? I think he spent. There's a meta currency called Resolve that removes a condition. And if you spend it permanently, it's resilience. But if you spend it, you can. So he was on fire, so he spent a Resolve to make sure he before. One, to stay conscious, and then another one to remove the fire, the condition of being on fire. So then he passed out, and then the other player said, "Stop spending to stay up. If you don't stay up, or if you continue to fight, you will likely be killed." So that was a player's decision, with the advice of the others, to stay unconscious. So yeah, that's what can happen. So, like I said, Kevin has given us the option, and we have the fate points to do so, to survive. So we'll see what the decision will be. But again, it's not dying that upset me in that game. It's a losing the not succeeding in the task.
Perhaps that's a good reason to do something like we've talked about with the Ash game, of separating treasure and figuring out how the treasure is divided before the end of the session, so we don't end up with the next session where somebody doesn't show up and we can't access their treasure. That may be a result of some of the players in the Ash game having played in Kevin's games. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you guys can keep playing that world. I don't think I don't know. I don't view character death as negative as a lot of people do, because these are games, and I'm a social gamer. I don't get as attached to my people, especially when the GM makes me play characters I don't want to play. The Lankmar game sounds great. I look forward to the live playing of it at the first RictorCon.
Yeah, actually, I think I had implemented that like a couple sessions back, where I had a bunch of extra stuff, and I said, "Hey, let's distribute this out." So I distributed a potion of flying and a potion of gaseous form, so we could use it tactically, or other people could use it tactically. So I thought that was a great idea that you suggested in our Ash game that we play together, and then I did that in the Ash game that I play on the Saturdays, the Reavers of Thule. And what sucks though is this past session, it would have been cool to have two flying ranged people, but the other person who had the other potion of flying and the potion of gaseous form did not show up. So it's kind of a thing. You definitely are hamstrung when people don't show up. I guess that's the bottom line. And Lankmar is a very cool system. I would love to really run it. We should do it. I mean, partially because it's DCC, right? Which I really like, and I guess it has some really different mechanics here and there, which are more add-ons, right? Optional, but it'd be really cool to play. I mean, it would be cool to play the funnel and work our way through a campaign, but I know you guys don't like funnels in DCC. But if we promise maybe a long-term campaign where it just wouldn't be a funnel, that could be kind of fun.
By the way, Carl, if any of my messages came off antagonistic, I apologize. I appreciate you. I appreciate you running the games that you do. I enjoy playing with you, and no offense was meant.
Hey, Jason, I definitely don't mind contrary opinions, and I don't think your posts are antagonistic for the most part, except when you get in your sarcastic mode. But that might be after a few beers or some shots of whiskey, which is okay. What I don't like, and you don't do this actually, but I realize what I don't like, even though ironically I do this maybe more often than I should, is people being dismissive. And what I mean by that is like, not giving a reason, not saying something good about a product or a style of play, and just saying, "Oh, it's boring," or "That's bad, wrong, fun." And I really hate dismissiveness, and it annoys, starting to annoy the shit out of me. Again, it's ironic because I'm sure I do it, and I gotta fix that in my own way I handle things, not just in games, but in life in general, right? So, but no need to apologize for being contrary. I don't think you're being antagonistic. But then again, maybe, like I said, you haven't had that bottle of rum yet.
Yo, Carl, you asked a few questions there at the end, so let's see what I can get. As far as the last part of that question, if there was a player who was only there for one session, do you keep that character around? Nope. I'd be done with them. I'd figure out a way to get rid of them. If they said, "Yeah, I'm not coming back," yeah, I got no interest in that character sticking around. As far as someone playing my character, sure. If I gave them permission and I was pretty confident that they wouldn't do something stupid with my character, I'd be fine with that. I'd be a little bummed out if they die, if they killed off my character. I have an emotional scar from when that happened a long time ago. And then as far as running a PC when the player isn't there, I don't know. It depends on how many people you have at your table. I got a pretty small table, usually just 3 players, so that situation doesn't arise all that much. But I guess if the other player was cool with it, I wouldn't care. I guess. Peace out.
And that's why I love to play in Joe Richter's games and would want to sit at the table that Joe Richter plays at. I think that's a fair decision. I mean, that's probably something now to include or talk about in a session 0 before you start a game. What are the expectations? You don't want to put players in any sense of obligation, because that just doesn't sit well. It seems like, yeah, you want commitment, but you don't want them to feel obligated. I think there's a fine line there. And I don't think there's anything wrong, personally, with, especially on the VTT where you have access to all the characters and you can grant access if needed. Let the people aren't there. Let their characters be temporarily NPCs, and the players can decide whether they want to use those resources or not. They're part of the party. It's not like a West Marches style game where you're in a town and they just kind of fade into the background and you start a new adventure every single time. I mean, you could do that in certain games. I would say like Savage Worlds, and Savage Worlds honestly is a little more conducive to. I mean, actually, that's not true. I don't even want to say that. I think in a drop in, drop out West Marches style game, you can really tailor the game to the number of players that you have at the time, right? And sure, there's some randomness involved and random elements if you want that kind of old school type play, and maybe the characters run afoul of something they can't chew, but that's expected in that West Marches style game. I think it's different in an ongoing game, the expectation. Anyway, thanks for the call, Joe, and we'll now get into a recap. Sometimes a game is a slow burn and not a rapid fire action fest. And last night's session of Twilight 2000, we played the 4th edition, was more of a slow kind of game. The survivors had settled in this valley somewhere northeast, maybe 40 clicks northeast of Krakow. Northwest of Krakow, sorry. They're trying to get there to turn over these papers that they found at an ambush site. A American convoy of U.S. 20th Special Forces had been ambushed. It was pretty severe. There was one survivor who only held on to pass on his message. So his plot armor faded as he delivered his death message. But the characters found these plans to help restart the world, maybe in their minds, that it was plans for developing or rebooting computers that had been compromised with EMP pulses and making a second generation of EMP protected computers. So it's pretty important stuff as part of something called Operation Reset that I had actually given characters clues about when we first started the game, maybe a month or 6 weeks ago. And they're still in the first phase, to me, of the game, the breakout phase, after the devastating loss at the Battle of Kalitz against Soviet and Polish forces. Their division, 5th Army, they were beaten up and broken apart into small units trying to GTFO. So they've been going for, I would say, in game time, maybe about a week, a little over a week, and they've traveled some maybe 120 kilometers from Kalitz to the outskirts of Krakow. But they needed some rest. They needed to do some gathering of distillables for their still so they could refuel their vehicles and go hunting. And hunting was kind of fun. It's kind of fun to just do these mechanics. I'm not going to keep track of individual units of food. We decided I'm going to do like a Black Hack style resource management with regards to food and water, and also with regards to medical supplies, for example. Not ammo. I think ammo, we can be granular with ammo since it's individually kept track of individually. And it's getting big. The group is getting big. This group of survivors. There's a player characters which number anywhere from 3 to 5. It seems. I think I maybe had 6 once. But then there are 4 people that they rescued from that they found in the remnants of an ambush, and they're recovering pretty well. There's still 3 or so that were walking wounded, but 2 of them are another one's recovered to be able-bodied. But the walking wounded to kind of help with the still and setting up the camp light duty. One of which was miraculously saved and was the basis for the excursion into Brozhnia to get medical supplies and blood transfusion equipment in the first place. So it's been pretty cool. I mean, again, it's a game about survival, not necessarily let's attack every Soviet position that we can. And I think that's pretty neat. So they did some hunting, and I think Amy's character led a hunting party a couple times. They stayed in this valley, I think 2.5 days, and took down a deer and a moose and some grouse. So they have plenty of food and meat. They've been able to collect water in this valley. There's like streams that come down from the mountains, so that's good. And there's plenty. It's a forest. There's plenty of consumable or distillables, organic material to throw in the still. They definitely wouldn't drink anything made from the still of pine trees, that's for sure, or pine cones. That would be probably pretty gross. I have bad experiences with vodka that has been maybe flavored with either pepper or pine. I don't think there's any pine vodka, I'm just kidding. I guess they could make alcohol from that. They do have a still, I don't know. They'd have to go through a process, right? Cleaning process. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to look up the chemistry of that if they want to have, some trade goods. Who knows? Make their own label of flavored vodka. Pretty interesting. The other players, so like while Amy's character was doing medical during the day and hunting in the early evening, Jason's character Sam was leading the party to collect consumables and then seeing to the maintenance of the vehicles, etc. So they were able to top off the bike as an emergency measure, top off Sam's truck. Amy felt that the Gas 66 didn't need any fuel because it's pretty efficient, surprisingly. And then the APC is a gas guzzler, so they filled that as much as they could in the days that they spent. Our other player who was there, his character led a group along with the NPC Jonesy into a nearby town. They didn't see any lights in the town, and they were saying like, "Oh, I guess maybe there's zombies in the town," and there might as well have been. The town looked like people were starving and sickly, and they discovered that it might have been hit as a secondary target. There's some impact craters from howitzers, and there's definitely an idea, even though they didn't have the equipment, there's definitely this idea that there might be radiation sickness abounding. And both the NPC Jonesy and another of the NPCs that they had saved. Actually, that's one thing I need to do is codify the names. We've been doing it sort of as it is necessary. For example, so there are the four people that they rescued before, and then a group of 12 former prisoners. So 4 of them had typhoid, and they've all recovered from the typhoid, although one was still kind of messed up, from it, a little like, out of it, I guess. We're still in the recovery phase, but they all are clear of typhoid. But there's those 4, and then there's 8 others, and we've only really named one, and that is the driver, because we've actually rolled for that person, and we named the driver this time. I don't remember his name, honestly, but one of the players is really taking it upon himself to get a roster together. So I'll have to codify, I guess, the other 11 or so. And I think this is a cool part of the game. And, new player characters, if they join, can be drawn from that group, unless they want to play one of the established characters that, the players haven't come back for a while, or it doesn't seem like they're going to come back, then they can take over one of those players permanently, or make their own, right? And we'll fit them in as best we can. But now we have a pool, so if they're U.S. soldiers, then it's kind of easy, because they can just draw from that pool, which would be cool. They become from faceless to someone who participates and takes the reins, which is kind of neat. So when they so a couple of characters got some radiation. Unfortunately, Jonesy got some radiation sickness, so he actually took some damage and gained some rads. So that's probably in the long term, Jonesy. I don't know. The more you get exposed to radiation, the more susceptible you become to the damage that it imparts. So yeah, it's not good, but it was interesting to kind of play around and check out what the radiation mechanic was and see what it's all about, which also helped. So the characters kind of laid low then for at least that evening. It was nice to have some heavy meat with the moose, and it turns out Sam is also a cook, was able to butcher properly and cook everything well. I mean, it really depends on the survival aspect of the game. It really depends on how detailed you want to be, but they do have rules for what happens if you don't eat cooked food. You need to cook your food, type of thing. So even that. So the next day, they did sort of take off towards Krakow, and they wanted to approach from the north part of the city. So they skirted another town on the map called Ojo, which actually, if they visited, that might be a pretty cool thing, but they did not. They came across a farm. Kasha, Amy's character, saw a face in the window, like a kid's face. So they stopped and they went to go see what was going on. It turns out these kids were there by themselves. Their parents had gone to Krakow. It was unspecified how long they'd been gone, but it looked like they had left them plenty of food. And then as they decided that they were going to leave, they saw another truck coming down from the north, which is not the direction of Krakow. And some men, seeing the truck, got out and were approaching the farm, thinking that this truck was part of the farm. But Sam, with some quick action, so Grunts jumped out of the truck. He was in the back of the truck. That's the other player's character. He says a ranger. I think he's a PFC. He's a ranger. He jumped out of the truck, told Kasha what was going on. Sam ran up to the door of the farmhouse and had everyone jump in. And they spun around in the back of the barn to try to lure these marauders. That's what they decided that they were. They didn't wear any standard uniforms, different insignia. They spun around the barn to try to get their attention and lead them away from the kids, which seemed to work. They decided to play it cool and not shoot at them. Their APC is about 300 yards away beyond the hill, because they kind of left the main convoy to the Gaz and the APC to check out the farmhouse. So now we'll pick up next time where these marauders are going to chase Sam in the truck, and Sam's goal is to lead them to the APC. They will get lit up by Ronson on the 50 cal, one hopes. But we will see next time in Twilight 2000 Breakout.